When you think about hot hatches, the Honda Civic definitely comes to mind. Of course, Honda offers the very outrageous and the king of the hot hatches, the Civic Type R. Then you have the Civic Si, and finally you have the Civic Sport. And that is what I have with me today, a brand new 2020 Honda Civic Sport Hatchback. Now for the 2020 year, Honda decided to do a mid-cycle refresh. So there are changes on the outside and on the inside. So in this review, I'm going to show you the ins and outs, point out what those changes are, go for a drive and see how fun it is to drive the Sport around, and finally conclude with the good and the bad so you guys can decide if this is the right hot hatch for you. Stay tuned.
First, I want to give big thanks to Honda of Laos, which made this video possible. So if you're in the market for a brand new or used Honda, make sure you check them out. Their URL is in the description below.
If this front end doesn't scream hot hatch to you, then I don't know what will. To me, this is what a hot hatch should look like. It's bold, it's aggressive, and it's in your face. Now for 2020, Honda made a few subtle changes and they made this hot hatch look even better. Starting with this grille, this crossbar grille that goes from one side to the other. You can see it's completely blackened out. That has been revised slightly. And same thing with the headlights. It's hard to tell, but the inside, the bezel is completely black to match this black grille. This definitely has a dark, aggressive, mean look to it, right? And I love this design. And same thing with the bottom bumper. Now this has always been controversial, both the front and the back. You just got a lot of black and grille. Some people like it, some people don't. Now for 2020, Honda decided to put this crossbar, and it just works. It looks much better, even though you get a lot of black plastic here still, but adding this just somehow makes it pop. And it does look much better because of it. And of course, you still have fog lights. Now, in terms of the headlights, just so you know, these are projector headlights. They use regular bulbs, they're not LED, but you do get auto high beams. And same thing with the fog light, just regular incandescent bulb. Now, take a look at the bottom bumper specific to the Sport, and it looks very aggressive. And of course, you have the lip spoiler on the side too. And I love the contrast. I have white and black here, which I love, but you could also get blue, you could get red, whatever color you get, the contrasting definitely pops. So moving on to this side, this is what a hot hatch should look like. It's sporty, it's aggressive, it has a nice stance, and I simply dig it. Now, these wheels, 18-inch alloy wheels, they have been redesigned for 2020. They have a black finish and a totally different design, but I think it looks really good. And also you do see a lot of contrasting that adds to the sportiness. This lip spoiler that's up here, it carries throughout on the side and also to the back. Of course, the window surround is also black with the bottom of the mirror, and everything just fits really well. So when it comes to rear ends for hot hatches, you got to have spoilers, and the more you have, the better. And that is why there's two on the Civic Sport. There's one up here and one down here. Now for 2020, Honda decided to change its bumper slightly. Just like the front, before you had this big open area of nothingness, now Honda decided to add these crossbars that's body colored. Somehow they add depth and layering, and somehow it just works. It makes this rear end look even better. Now the bottom is specific to Sport and Sport Touring, so you have this lip that kind of goes across to the middle. The exhaust tips are in the middle, so that looks really cool actually. And when you combine all this together, it just looks good.
Now, because this is a hatchback, it's very practical. Take a look at the trunk. It is nice and big. This is much bigger than a trunk in a sedan. And you can see it's wide, it's deep, and it's tall. Besides loads of space that you get back here, you do get this fancy privacy cover that slides from the right side and locks on the left side if I could figure out how to do that. But it is nice that it does come with it. And those of you guys that are parents, you'll see that there are 3 car latches here. And underneath, you have a spare tire. And that's pretty much it.
Now I'm in the back row, and it's pretty spacious back here. I'm 5'10". This is a good 5 inches from my seating position up here. Same thing with headroom, a good 4 or 5 inches, even though the roof slants down, but it doesn't affect me. And there's a good amount of room here. I'm really surprised. The seats are also very comfortable because this is a sport edition. You get this special leather and cloth mix, and it actually feels pretty good. In the center here is leather. In the middle where I'm sitting is cloth. So I'm kind of stuck here. I'm not sliding around. So that's nice. You get a pair of cup holders in the door panels, but that's pretty much it. You don't get much else. There's no ports over here, no USB ports, no outlets. There's no armrest. Although these seat backs do fold down, they don't adjust. You can't adjust it up, and you can't slide the seats forwards and backwards. So it's pretty basic back here, but you do get enormous amount of space, and it's very comfortable. All right, moving on to the front, take a look at these seats. It has its own unique design that's specific to the Sport Edition, and it looks and feels great. You got leather on the side, you got this cloth in the middle, so you're not sliding. And take a look from the door panel to the center here, the infotainment system. Let me concentrate on this because this is new for 2020, specific to the Sport Edition, which you didn't have this before. This is a 7-inch touchscreen that has buttons. So as you can see, you could go to phone, you can go to menu. I mean, it's pretty responsive, but if you didn't want to fool around with touchscreen, you could just use the buttons. And there's a volume knob, so there's no worry there. And for 2020, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay has been added, and it does support it. So that is something that a lot of people is looking forward to. Now, what I like is there are a few buttons that's really convenient. For example, climate. You don't see a lot with the climate button. So if you wanted to adjust the climate really quick, you can. There you go. You don't have to fumble around inside. Okay, and also up here, I noticed that there's a button and you could adjust the brightness, and that's pretty cool. You don't have to go into settings. Honda did think of a few things that makes this really convenient. Now down here, same thing with the climate control. You have auto, on, off. Defroster is over here. Unfortunately, this is not the one equipped with 6-speed manual. However, I do have a CVT that can be controlled via paddle shifters. So I'm really anxious to try this out. How Honda decided to figure out how to shift the CVT utilizing paddle shifters. Man, I'm really excited to see how that feels. Okay, moving on, you got eco mode. So most likely if you're buying a Sport Edition, you're not going to be touching that. You got brake hold, electronic parking.
All right, moving on to these cup holders. You can see 2 cup holders that slide open, and take a look at the space underneath. If you wanted to put something huge, a 2-liter bottle down here, you can. And plus, there is a USB port there. So you could slide the cup holder forward and backwards, and take a look at this armrest. That could also slide forward and backwards. It's really unique. So if you didn't want to have 2 cup holders, just maybe one, you just slide the armrest up. If you wanted to put your arm there, fine. And of course, you can open it and get more space. This whole thing is just designed really well.
Now moving on to the gauge cluster, this to me looks like a spaceship. It has a very futuristic vibe or feel to it, and that's okay. It matches the Sport. In the middle, you have a big tach, but that is a big screen that is simulating that. On the side, you got fuel, you got temperature. Those are analog, although the ticker or the marker is digital, so it's a combination of both. But in the middle, you get everything. You get your time, your temperature, your miles per hour, your RPM, and of course, you could scroll through a number of things. Your trip computer, your engine, service, music, phone. You could go through a whole bunch of stuff over there. Now moving on to the steering wheel, this is traditional Honda steering wheel, and it doesn't look too bad. Over here, you do have a lot of things that controls the adaptive cruise control and lane keep system, which you get Honda sensing in here. So road mitigation, auto braking, you do get those in this Civic Sport. And over here, you can control the menu, your phone, your volume. That's pretty basic. Now over here, you got a few buttons. You can turn on or off. Lane mitigation, collision mitigation, or traction control. Now if you go to reverse, you can see the rear view camera, and you could adjust the angles, wide angle or underneath, or just standard view, so it just depends on what you're looking for. It does not have the 360 view, and it kind of looks a bit blurry, so the resolution could be better. All right, it's time to go for a drive. I can't wait to see how this Sport feels on the road, specifically with this paddle shifting CVT. But normally I would shoot me talking, but because I'm in a hot hatch, I'm going to do it opposite. I'm going to shoot from my point of view so you guys can see what I'm seeing. So it's going to be fun. All right, right now I'm still in automatic mode. I haven't shifted to sport mode because I want to get a general feel for the car. Sport is handling these curves just fine, even though I'm going a bit more aggressive than I need to be. Just to test it out, I mean, it feels nice. It feels planted. Doesn't feel like it's out of control. Now the steering is light. It's a little vague. So far, no complaints. A very smooth and comfortable ride, and extremely quiet. I got done testing some cars and I thought they were quiet. You know, no road noise, no engine noise, no nothing. But sometimes the engine or transmission gets a bit loud. That's not the case here. I mean, it is a CVT, but it behaves like an auto. It doesn't have the drones that you hear normally, and the engine is quiet, it's not super loud. So Honda decided to upgrade the tech and the safety. So I showed you guys how there's this new 7-inch touchscreen, right? That's really nice. It looks bright, it works well, it has all the physical buttons that you want. And in terms of safety, you do get parts of Honda's sensing here. So you do have lane mitigation, you have lane warning if you start swerving out. Same thing with collision detection. It will auto brake for you, and you get auto high beam. So there are safety features that's now tacked on to the Sport Edition, and that's really nice. All right, now I'm gonna go to the open road. I'm gonna put it in sport mode, and let's see how this paddle shifting is with the CVT transmission. Man, it does behave. It behaves like an auto. If you keep shifting, it'll say 7 gear, but this is CVT, obviously there's no gears, but Honda is simulating an auto or manual with this setup, and it works. Shifts are instantaneous. Now, in terms of the car getting up to 60 miles per hour, not the quickest. This is utilizing a 1.5 liter turbo engine, 180 horsepower, which is 5 more than the regular non-sport trims. But it gets the job done. It's lively. It's not the quickest. It's not as quick as a SI, and definitely not as quick as a Type R, but it is fun. It is fun. You get a nice exhaust tone too, just slightly. I mean, none of the Hondas, even a Type R, isn't very loud. You get a sport note, that's for sure, in this Sport Edition. Now, those of you guys that aren't familiar with paddle shifters, the car will downshift for you. So if you're coming to a stop, it's not like a manual where you have to shift to 1. It will go down for you, but it will hold the revs and it will not shift until you do so. I mean, once the turbo spools up, it feels pretty lively. So you gotta wait for that turbo to kind of spool up, get up there in the RPM, and then the horsepower kicks in. It's actually really fun afterwards. I mean, last year I reviewed a Civic Si and I had a blast with it. There's not that many cars, even sporty cars, that actually offer a regular stick shift. You know, it's fun to bang the gears, even though it might not be the quickest, might not be the most efficient, but it's just fun. It's just fun. So I can't wait to test out a Sport Edition with a stick shift. So that'll be coming later on. But right now I gotta say, I mean, this is actually pretty fun with the paddle shifters. It's actually pretty lively car, especially when the turbo spools up. I think if you're trying to daily commute this, you would be very, very happy. It is very comfortable, very spacious. You got a hatch back there, so you can put plenty back there. The rear seats are actually decently big, front seats just as well. And in terms of visibility, I have no problem. As you guys could see, the windshield is nice and big, side windows, same thing with the rear window. Although I will say the middle spoiler, or the lower spoiler, does cut into visibility a little bit. It kind of splits it, but you can still see plenty back there. So in terms of the price, I mentioned about the 3 hot hatches. This one, because it is a sport, it comes in around $24,000. Now, if you add on a couple thousand to that, then you could upgrade to the Civic Si. Now, the new one, the 2020 Si, is not released yet, so the price might go up slightly, but roughly $2,000. And then if you're moving out to Civic Type R, then you're looking at 40s and 50s possibly with dealer markups. Even though they're not supposed to be that high, they're still very rare. By the way, these seats are really comfortable. I'm held in. They're not real sports seats, but because it's cloth in the middle and leather on the side, you're not slipping around. A lot of leather seats that I test with, around the curves and bends, I'm slipping in and out. I don't feel that with this Sport Edition. Actually, it holds me in really well, and I feel really comfortable. I think Honda did a really good job on these seats as well.
So to conclude, let's talk about the good and the bad to this Honda Civic Sport Hatchback. Starting with the good, it definitely looks like a hot hatch. It also has a huge hatchback trunk, which is very practical. The seats are comfortable and there's a lot of space. The new infotainment system with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is a big improvement. It has a CVT that doesn't sound or act like a CVT. And lastly, there is amazing suspension providing a smooth ride and great handling. Now as for the bad, there's only a few. Looks like a hot hatch, may be overbearing or too much for some. There is no rear USB ports or outlet. And lastly, there is no all-wheel drive option where some of the competition does offer. In conclusion, I'm truly impressed at this Honda Civic Sport Hatchback. I had a blast driving it even though I was using paddle shifters with a CVT transmission. It was still fun, it was very comfortable, it's spacious, it's practical, and it's affordable. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you check out some of these other videos. Take care, bye-bye.